I'm going to read the summary of chapter 7. This chapter is entitled What Pralad Learned in the Womb. So here's the summary. You want me to, I will post the summary. You can all read along. In this chapter, to dissipate the doubts of his class friends, the sons of the demons, Pralad Maharaj states how, within the womb of his mother, he had heard from the mouth of Narada Muni, who had instructed him in Bhagavad Dharma. When Iraniakashipu left his kingdom and went to the mountain known as Mandharachala, to execute severe austerities, all the demons scattered because they were now not protected. Iraniakashipu's wife, Kayadhu, was pregnant at that time, and the demigods, mistakenly thinking that she carried another demon in her womb, arrested her. Their plan was that as soon as the child took birth, they would kill him. While they were taking Kayadhu to the heavenly planets, they met Narada Muni, who stopped them from taking her away and took her to his ashram until Hiranyakashipu's return. Narada Muni is Naishtiki Brahmachari, so you don't have to worry. In Narada Muni's ashram, Kayadhu prayed for the protection of the baby in her womb, and Narada Muni reassured her and gave her instructions on spiritual knowledge. Taking advantage of those instructions, Pralad Maharaj, although a small baby within the womb, listened very carefully. The spirit soul is always apart from the material body. There is no change in the spiritual form of the living entity. Any person above the bodily conception of life is pure and can receive transcendental knowledge. The transcendental knowledge is devotional service, and Pralad Maharaj, while living in the womb of his mother, received instructions in devotional service from Narada Muni. Any person engaged in the service of the Lord through the instructions of a bona fide spiritual master is immediately liberated. And being free from the clutches of Maya, he is relieved of all ignorance and material desires. So you could say Pralad came out enlightened, so to speak. The duty of everyone is to take shelter of the Supreme Lord and thus become free from all material desires. Regardless of the material condition in which one is situated, one can achieve this perfection. Devotional service is not dependent on the material activities of austerity, penance, mystic yoga, or piety. Even without such assets, one can achieve devotional service through the mercy of the pure devotee. So that's really the essence here. Generally, we don't go to maternity wards and start preaching to the kids in the womb. Generally, we go to college campuses, right? Isn't it? But Prabhupada's making the point that one's material condition is not a disadvantage. But what you need is to hear from a pure devotee and the association of pure devotee. And if you have that, it doesn't matter what else is going on, and if you have everything else going on and you don't have that, then you're not doing good. Okay. That's very important, don't you think? Because there's always this thought that goes around in our minds and in our hearts that I am so this or so that. How will I ever be Krishna conscious? Or I've done so many sinful activities or so many wrong things or thoughts, so many bad thoughts, and still think so many bad thoughts and have so many bad inclinations. And how will I ever be Krishna conscious? And the answer is by hearing from a pure devotee. That's how. That's more powerful than any of the ignorance that we're fighting with. And if you just came to the mode of goodness, which is really an ideal position to advance, but you didn't have the instruction of pure devotee, then you would just remain in the mode of goodness, maybe for lifetimes. And so it would be it's only an advantage when you meet a pure devotee. But even if you don't have that advantage, If you meet a pure devotee and hear from him, there's so much mercy in hearing from a pure devotee, because their words, their consciousness transfers in their words into your consciousness. It just cleans up so much dirt. So, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to worry about your past. You don't have to, all you have to worry about is hearing from the pure devotee. That if you're going to worry about something, worry about being able to hear from them. Sometimes we worry about the wrong thing. So this is what we should worry about. I have to make sure I have time to hear from the pure devotee. Then everything will be good. So worry about that. If you like to worry, that's worth worrying about. Okay. So I'm going to try to explain this chapter as best I can without having to read everything, because I want to get through all 10 chapters. 3, 4, 5, 6. We've done 4 already, which is not bad. That's only 3 classes. So we're going pretty fast. So this chapter begins by Pralad addressing the question that was asked of his friends. We're in the same school. We have the same teachers. You know all kinds of things we don't know. Where did you learn this from? So he begins telling the story that he heard from Narada Muni. When his father was doing tapasya, so his mother wasn't protected. So then he ended up in Narada Muni's ashram. And so now he is going to, he tells the story of how Indra was going to kill him and Narada saved him and said that he's a great devotee, don't kill him. And then he is going to, and then Narada assured Prahlad's mother, you don't have to worry, you will be protected. In any sane culture, women are protected. They don't have, women only have to worry when they're in the association of unscrupulous men, but when they're in the association of saintly persons, they don't have to worry. If they're in the association of cultured men, they don't have to worry. They will be protected. Otherwise, they will be taken advantage of in one way. If not sexually, they can be taken advantage in other ways. So now we will start to discuss the instructions that he received. So that's now Pralad remembered everything, but his mother didn't. His mother was really concerned about him. So she wasn't paying as much attention as he was. And so she actually forgot. It's hard to forget, but she did. And Pralad Maharaj, after he took birth, remembered. Yeah. Yes. I heard a story today about women. You probably heard this, but it's worth repeating. So Jadharani asked Prabhupada, is it true women are less intelligent? And Prabhupada said, yes, if you think you're a woman, then you're less intelligent. So what a witty and classic answer, and to the point. And if I think I'm a man, I'm also less intelligent. We have stereotypes for men and women, which are generally true, but we also find Kali Yuga is a very mixed up age. And so you have women who are more like men and men who are more like women. Not all, but you do have that. So sometimes stereotypes don't work. And social environment is different now. I think if the environment were different, you'd have more men like men and more women like women, but it's kind of mixed up now. So sometimes the lines get crossed and they say women need protection. Yeah, some men need protection also. Some women protect the men, some marriages, the women are in charge. So it's a little mixed up in Kali Yuga. And also, these women who were daughters of kings, they were very powerful, kshatriyas. They could fight, they could drive chariots, so forth. I don't know if I could drive a chariot and fight. So they had Shakti that I don't have. So, whenever Prabhupada talks about protection of women, we have to see it not, men use that to demean women, which is really really weird. And, but I think a lot of that just comes from aversion, attraction and aversion. Because I noticed that amongst the second generation, at least in America, they don't have any of that antagonism towards women. They don't have, it's just not, some of the ones I've seen is generally just not part of the way they think. So, this is really more for men than women, what I'm saying. But it's a social, it's meant to be understood socially. Nobody should be exploited. And men like to exploit women. So that's why they need protectors around them from the guys. If the guys were better, then we wouldn't have to worry so much about protection, right? Who are we protecting them from? Unscrupulous men. If we didn't have unscrupulous men, we wouldn't have to worry so much, right? Hare Krishna. But of course, when women are pregnant and have children, they can't. It's really hard to do everything. So you have a man who provides. It's just natural and normal. Okay, so if you think you're a woman, then definitely less intelligent. If I think I'm a man, definitely less intelligent. So Pralad begins his instructions to his friends saying, you're just young boys, but if you listen to what I'm saying, and if you have faith in what I'm saying, you'll be able to understand, even though you're very young. And it doesn't matter who you are, man, woman, child. If you put faith in the words of the Acharya, through that faith, then Krishna from within will help you understand. And if you don't have faith, you can have 64 PhDs and you're not going to understand, because it's not a matter of just material intelligence or IQ. So the spiritual knowledge is interesting. It's not like you can just understand it. It doesn't work that way. There are ingredients required, faith being one of them. Purity, obviously. Yes. Okay. So, now he begins his discourse that the soul doesn't change, the body changes. So that's, of course, the Jayate Mriyate Vahakadachin, that's Bhagavad Gita 220, and that is, kind of where Krishna is beginning his instructions in the Gita. That's where Prabhupada preached this over and over again, because it's the basis of spiritual philosophy. We could call it Sankhya or Gyan, but still it's the basis, different between matter and soul. So that's where Pralad starts. That's where Narada Muni started. That's where Prabhupada started. That's where Krishna starts. That's where we start when we talk to people. Well, what do you guys believe? Well, we're not the body, we're spirit, soul. That's where it starts. Yeah. And so then when Krishna describes you're not the body, your spirit, soul, then he describes how, because it's not material, you can't burn it, you can't dry it up, you can't get it wet, and so forth. Try to give some, context of this. And then the next thing we teach is, if you think you're the body, you're in an illusory state, and you will become attached to things connected to the body. So that's what Pralad is telling his friends. You think you're the body, so you're attached to all the things that give your body pleasure and your false ego pleasure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And now he's saying, Pralad saying, if you don't have a little spiritual advancement, then what I'm saying, you're not going to understand it. It's like really simple. I mean, for us, it's simple, isn't it? I think all of us, most of us, maybe all of us, when we heard it, we understood it. It was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But Prahlad Maharaj is saying it's not so understandable to everyone. I don't know if you ever heard this conversation, but there was a conversation with Prabhupada. I forget who the man was. Maybe he was a reporter. And he was asking, what's your philosophy? And Prabhupada saying, you're not the body. He was explaining it. And the man couldn't understand it. And he kept asking, and Prabhupada kept explaining the same thing over and over again, and explaining it. Body changes, you don't change, you're conscious, you're aware of your body, you're changing from boyhood to youth. He couldn't understand it. And I'm not going to assume, I would assume the man's intelligent materially, if he's a reporter or journalist, right? Average, above average intelligence, couldn't understand it. Isn't that interesting? I mean, Prabhupada spent, I think, 5 minutes at least trying to explain how you're not the body, and he couldn't understand it. Isn't that? And Pralad said, if you're a little spiritually evolved, you'll understand. If not, you won't. Like atheists. It's like in an atheist brain, there's no place to understand this. There's no box in there for I'm not the body, spirit, soul. It just doesn't exist. It's interesting, isn't it? How, according to the living entity's desire, he'll get a body that can't understand some basic ABCs of spiritual life. Hare Krishna. And some people, they'll just get it right away. Hare Krishna. Okay. So, let me continue. So then Pralad goes on to explain all the material elements and how the soul is the observer within the body. Because how do you know you're not the body? Because you observe it. How do you know you're not your thoughts? Because you observe them. If you observe something, you must not be it, right? Because you're looking at it. So the looker must be different. Like you look in the mirror, right? You see yourself? No. Yourself is the one who's observing that image in the mirror. The image is not you. You're the one observing. Interesting, right? So he's giving some Sankhya philosophy, basically Bhagavad Gita. It's interesting, isn't it? That here, Narada Muni was giving Pralad ABCs, Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. Pralad's doing the same thing. Prabhupada did it again and again. You can Google, you're not this body in the database. See how many thousands of times Prabhupada said it. Anyone want to hey, can you do that, Tanya? You're not the body. You know how to do that? You put it in quotes, you're not the body. And you see how many hits come up? 7,000 times, maybe, who knows? 4,000. Can you do that? Yeah, okay. She's going to tell us how many times it comes in. Or Aham Brahmasmi, I am not this body, I am spirit, soul. Like how many times that comes up? Okay. So then he begins explaining the modes of nature, how we become subjected to the modes of nature. You know, modes of nature are interesting because we learn that the modes of nature cause us to act, right? Correct? So therefore, I can blame all my problems on the modes of nature, right? Yes? It's just the modes. It's right there in the Gita. Like, yeah. But who chose to associate with those modes? It's like, it's not my fault the plane went to India. Well, who got on the plane to India? Who bought the ticket to India? You did. So once you're on the plane, you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there and the plane's going. Yeah. So once you got on the plane of the mode of passion, yeah, but you got on the plane. So you can't blame the modes of nature, although you can blame the modes of nature, but you can't, because all choices that we make are choices to act within those modes. Tanya, the number should just come up, right? At least if you it's not.
Wikipedia crashed.
Oh,
I'm trying.
oh, okay. All right. So it's like that example I gave. I can't get anything done because my house is dirty. My room's disorganized. I can't get anything done. It's a bad influence, having a bad influence on me. But have you ever noticed that your room's disorganized when your brain's disorganized? Your life's disorganized when you're disorganized. So it's something like that. I can't get organized because my room's disorganized. Well, who disorganized your room in the first place? Right? So you disorganized it, and now the disorganized room is having a disorganizing effect on you. So who chose to act within those modes of nature? We did, and then the modes of nature act on us, and then we can. Mode of passion, it's so strong, it's pushing me around. What can I do? I feel helpless. Yeah, but you chose that. Okay, we have a comment here for some controversial entertainment here. And this should wake everybody up. The word rape is coming up, so I just wanted to wake you up. From a gender perspective, it is suggested to educate the population, in this case, to educate so that women are not exploited or abused, instead of protecting them. Protecting perpetuates and normalizes the existence of abusers. Instead, educating children from childhood not to exploit affects the problem from the root. Yes and no. Educate not to rape instead of assuming that men cannot control themselves and therefore only protect women. That's true, but just like I said, when you're pregnant or when you have little kids, you can't go out and work all day. Your husband has to go out and work and bring in the bread and butter for you. So that's a kind of protection. And when you go bring your car in to the mechanic, go with a man who knows about cars. They'll charge you less. It's true, isn't it? In America, they have 3 prices for cars when you go to buy a car. Price for Black people, price for women, and a price for white men. And the white men get the cheapest price. Did you know that? So ladies, when you buy a car in America, bring a man with you, a white man. You'll get a better deal. Of course, you can strangle the salesman and get a deal yourself, but they will try to take advantage of you. Just like when you go to India, go shopping with an Indian. They'll protect you from price bashing, right? So there are protections like that as well. The problem is, okay, so you have, in Vedic culture, you have the Brahmins, the Vaishyas, and the Kshatriyas. They go to Gurukul, but the Shudras don't. They're not qualified. So and Shudras make up the vast majority. So there's only so far you can educate Shudras to be like sense controlled. They have limitations. So, you also have to have restriction, education and restriction. And just like, every father protects his daughter from bad association, right? Otherwise, sometimes she'll make a bad choice, which could ruin her life. Well, men also do the same thing. So parents generally protect also. I think also in Kali Yuga, everybody's less intelligent. Everyone needs protection. Mm. Let's see what else we got here. I have always wondered which is the correct way to preach to people with a lot of material suffering, for example, to a person who is in a lot of material suffering by telling him or her, you're not the body. Yeah. After they get run over by a truck, just tell them you're not the body and give them a Bhagavad Gita and go down to the donut factory in New York and get yourself a donut, right? I heard they have good donuts there. No, it's not like that. For example, an immigrant mother or father living in a poor house without access to water, light, and health, and who goes out the streets to sell food to feed their children. What do we tell them? Well, telling someone that you're not the body, we need the numbers. Can't find the count. Oh, can't find the count. So I can find the count on my computer, but then I lose track of where we are. Anyway, I'll look for it later. Remind me towards the end of class, I can do it. Okay, you're not the body. What does that mean? That I don't have compassion on people who are suffering? Well, I think that would be a perverted understanding, don't you? You see, when you're talking about social issues, there's a problem. And the problem is we're not in charge of the government. And Prabhupada talks about social issues particularly in the first canto of Bhagavatam, because it's talking about leadership. And Prabhupada's talking about what is good leadership, and what the rulers of countries, what they should do, how they should act, what they shouldn't do, and so forth. And the connotation is, well, maybe someday we'll be in that position where we have to lead people. But the context is much different than the context of ISKCON, which is a Brahminical organization. Now, it seems that Prabhupada's saying, as Brahmins, we may also have to educate, we would educate Kshatriyas, and we may have to take that role, but we're so far from that, outside of doing that within our own organization, and even pretty far from doing that properly in our own organization, because we're not well educated as leaders. So, Prabhupada was on a mission to establish a Brahminical society. So it doesn't mean he wasn't concerned about suffering, but he saw the suffering that people were undergoing as a consequence of bad leadership. So in general, he felt that it's not the responsibility of the Hare Krishna movement to solve social problems. In general, that's how he felt. Although it's not that he wasn't compassionate and kind and concerned, he was. He started a food distribution program in India because of the poverty there. And there were poor children coming to the temple in Juhu. He told some of the life members, you should get them clothes, take care of them like that. But as an organization, that wasn't why Prabhupada established. It's like established ISKCON. It's like saying, we establish a university, and in the neighborhood of the university, there's a lot of poverty. So the university could deal with the poverty in the neighborhood, but it's not why it's not their primary purpose. So something like that. So it doesn't mean to say devotees are not compassionate, but we're trying to get to the root of the problem. I don't know if that addresses what you were asking, but maybe it's too philosophical an answer. But I guess what I was trying to say is that a devotee is compassionate, even though you are not the body, it doesn't mean that I don't care what happens to your body. Right? I mean, that's a very fanatical understanding of you're not the body, which we sometimes had as young devotees, kind of like, so-and-so Prabhu is sick. Oh, he's not the body, whatever. So kind of a strange way to act, don't you think? Strange way to interpret you're not the body. And so Prabhupada had to correct us. He said, take care of your godbrothers when they're sick. Oh, really? We're supposed to do that? I thought we're not the body. Yeah, Prabhupada had to tell us like how to be like normal. Do you know that? Did you know that? We would sometimes neglect devotees when they were sick, and Prabhupada would have to tell us, take care of them. But Prabhupada, they're not the body. You're not the body either. Okay. How did that feel? I'm going to slap you for not taking care of this devotee because you're not the body either, right? That's the Three Stooges become devotees. There's a comedy called The Three Stooges. Their IQ is like minus 108, right? So they do all kinds of stupid things. And that would be, someday I'll make my movie, The Three Stooges become devotees. And they would do things like that. You know, they would torture one another. Get out there in Sankirtan. I don't want to go. And you pull them by the sika, you know, throw them in the van. And you throw them against the wall. Oh, that hurts. You're not the body, you know, like that. Hare Krishna. And you're all listening to thinking, no, you guys weren't that crazy, were you? Yeah, we were. Believe me, we were. Maybe not that crazy, but sometimes that crazy. So I think the answer to your question is, maybe what you're hinting at is that sometimes in the name of philosophy, we degrade into animal species and act like animals. I think that's what you're saying. Have you noticed that? It's kind of weird, isn't it? Like sometimes I say, I don't know, this philosophy is dangerous. Maybe we're not qualified for it. You know, how could you be degraded by reading Bhagavad Gita, you know, and act unkindly, unsympathetically, without compassion? It doesn't seem possible, but it can happen. So sometimes we get like way too philosophical when we just need to be practical. So I think your question is practical, and it's not really, and it's just misapplied philosophically, unfortunately, right? You know, I'm not the body, so, you know, why are there men's bathrooms and women's bathrooms? You know, it's this like bodily concept, right? Why did I marry a woman? It's like totally in the bodily concept. You know, it's just why didn't I marry a dog or something? We should see equally, right? All living entities equally. Why a woman? Why not a dog? Why not marry a cow? Cows are part of our philosophy. So, you know, how far do you extend philosophy? You could extend it to total insanity, right? So sometimes we do that. Fortunately, Prabhupada was practical, you know, practical theology. And so he would look at philosophy in practical ways. And, you know, it's a real challenge to understand philosophy in practical terms, because if you don't understand it in practical terms, it's like you really didn't understand it. You could repeat it, and it sounds like you understood it, but until you understand practical application according to time and place, you really haven't understood it. And then you could easily misuse it, as does happen. So that's a long answer. I don't know if that's the answer that helps, but it's an answer. So going back to your first question, yes, men need to be educated. That's called brahmachari. See every woman as mother with respect. But the mass of population is not so easily educatable. But therefore, you need both education and some restriction. Of course, restriction alone is not going to work. As it is said, for those who are incorrigible, laws are useless. For those who can be educated, laws are unnecessary. Something like that. Have you ever heard that statement? I don't know, remember exactly. You know, it's like you want to pass a law to stop something, but really you need to change a heart to stop it. So it said, if you don't change the heart, the laws are unnecessary because they won't work. And if you change the heart, the laws are unnecessary because you don't need them. But that's the idea. How far that's true, it's true for some people, but there'll always be people for whom, you know, you need to pull their ear and say, don't do that, or we'll drown you. You know, you always need some people, that's kind of like the only way. But, you know, I don't know if you know this, but I don't know if it's true now, but some of my friends went to Saudi Arabia. This was in the 1980s, and they said nobody locks their house. Did you know that? In Saudi Arabia, nobody locks their house. You want to know why? Does anybody know why? Because if you steal, you'll get your hands cut off. So solve that problem. Nobody steals because people value their hands more than what they're going to steal, right? So there is something to be said about these very strict punishments. It does have it does help, at least. I mean, you know, depends how you do everything. But of course, the problem is you get your hands cut out and they find that you were innocent. That's another thing. That's for another day's discussion with some devotee lawyers. But the principle is there because Manu Samhita also has these, you know, punishments. But it's, you know, it's Kali Yuga. It's for people who you can't educate. You have to punish. You know, different ways of getting people to do things, and one is the stick. So some people just work better with the stick behind them. 5 million, 5 billion, no, it can't be possible. 5,840,000,000 results for You're Not the Body.
That number is for Google.
Oh, that's for Google.
Yeah.
Oh, Google, yeah. Database, 16,000 results and transcripts. Nine. That's, so that is, if that's true, 25, 26,000, 26,821. You're Not the Body. That's by far the largest. I mean, maybe next. I don't even think Krishna comes up that much. So, okay, it's confirmed. It is now confirmed, ladies and gentlemen. You are not the body 26,000 times. You're not the body. Anurada says, giving only material comfort is like to make them more comfortable in the cage of the bird who's in it. Only spiritual knowledge can free them. Yeah. But that someone might say, well, while you're preaching to them, make them comfortable so they can listen. So that's there also, right? You know, if they're, Prabhupada said, you know, if they're too poverty stricken, they can only think about food and shelter, right? But the food and shelter problem is a mismanagement problem, which in the long run, Krishna consciousness would solve that problem. But of course, Prabhupada said, you know, everybody come, we'll take care of you. Come and serve Krishna, we'll take care of you. Tanya says, I remember hearing Prabhupada say that a Brahmin is one who knows he's not the body, and a Vaishnava is one who acts like he's not the body. I can't find the reference, but I think about that. I never heard it before, but could be. Are you a Vaishnava? Okay, we did talk about we did talk about acting like if you talk the average devotee, they'll say, well, I think I'm American or I'm Mexican or I'm Croatian or French or Russian or Chilean, or what else do we have? Indian here. And then you can divide it up into states: Siberian, Texan, I don't know, I can't, or, from a certain part of India, Karnataka or whatever. So, and so, most devotees think, well, when I wake up in the morning, I think I'm a man. I mean, like I look in the mirror, it looks like I'm a man. Doesn't it? Is that what it looks like to you? And you're looking at me and you go, oh, he's a man. And I'm looking at Anurana, I go, oh, she's a woman. So then I think, well, I'm in the bodily concept because I'm seeing the body. But if we practice devotional service, we're not in the bodily concept, because we wouldn't practice devotional service if we didn't understand something about not being the body, because we make sacrifices on the physical level. We don't do certain things because we're not the body. So even though we maybe are not fully realized, we are not entirely acting on the bodily platform because we're engaged in devotional service. We're doing some tapasya, right? Some austerity. If you're the body, then you sleep as much as you possibly can, right? Get up as late as you can and just get your cup of coffee and run out to work, right? But because you think you're not the body, you get up and you go to the temple and you chant. So you're chanting around, that means you're not the body. You're going on book distribution, it means you're not the body. You're a Mangalartik, it means you're not the body. You're taking prasadam, it means you're not the body. So all these, so don't give yourself a hard time. These are all signs that you realize on some level you're not the body. Does that make you feel better? You can all pat yourself on the back now. Say, oh, I'm self-realized. Mahatma Prabhu said I'm self-realized. It was class today. He said it right there. Everybody's writing me emails now. How could you say that? You're an illusion. Reddy says, it reminds me of a question that someone asked me. If we are not the body, why do we separate guys and girls in the temples and ashrams? My response was, it is required because we're not at that level yet. Yeah. Yeah, this is, it's much easier for men to understand this than women. Women are like, if the guys are so Krishna conscious, what's the problem, And the guys are like, yeah, well, Krishna made the women quite attractive, and I'm not self-realized yet, so it is a problem. But in any cultured society, there's always obviously some separation. If there's not enough separation, then it creates problems. It can be hard for people to understand that nowadays, but it is a good question. Normally I say, well, the temple is like a monastery and a nunnery all in one place. You know the joke? Here is the monastery. Here is where the nuns live, and in the middle is the orphanage. You know that? Have you heard that? Whenever you have a monastery and a convent, you need an orphanage. Whereas if you have the monastery on the top of the mountain and the convent at the bottom of the ocean, you don't need an orphanage because they can't get to one another. So it's for protection. It's just protection. Like, okay, we should not have to worry about it, but we're bringing in people off the street. So we have to worry about the people we bring in off the street, that they are not yet on the level yet. So we keep the monastery on the top of the mountain and the convent in the bottom of the ocean just to protect everybody. So does that make sense, Riddhi? That's kind of how I explain it.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Because Prabhupada always, when people like criticize us, you Hare Krishnas, this, that, and the next thing. And, and a lot of the accusations are true, but we say, okay, what you say is true, but we're inviting people to come and become purified. So they're coming from a situation where they're not pure. So you can't expect them to be pure all of a sudden just because the books say this is how we should act. So the problem is not so much our deficiency philosophically or practically. The problem is where people are coming from in the first place, which is the problem of society. And we're not responsible for the problem of society. We're only responsible for purifying people who are coming from that. So it's like you go to the hospital, you walk in the hospital and you're like, there's so many sick people here. I can't believe it. What's wrong with this hospital? And then people would think, oh, you're crazy. That's what a hospital is. So you come to Hare Krishna temple and you go, oh, there's so many weird people here. Yeah. Well, the Hare Krishnas didn't create the weird people. Well, maybe we created some of them, but the society created the weird people who have the problems, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't want to, we don't want to say that in a derogatory way. We just want to say it factually. I have an offline question from Vilma, who can't attend the classes. How to deal with constant rejection from Guru Maharaj and how to clear from the heart, because when you have the feeling in your heart, you're going to be rejected again and again. And then you also attract humor. Yeah, that's it's not rejection by your Guru Maharaj, it's rejection by anybody. That's just a feeling. It's called the samskara, Vilma. You have the rejection samskara. You have to trace it out. The cause of it, what's causing it. And then you have to develop a proper samskara, acceptance samskara. Prabhupada only rejected 2 devotees because they rejected him. So as long as we don't reject our guru, the guru will not reject us. So to think the guru is rejecting us and we haven't rejected him is not true at all. He won't. He can't. I think Vilma is referring to maybe not complete rejection, but maybe rejecting our service or this or that. It's a frame of mind that comes from feeling we're rejectable. If you feel rejectable, then you'll feel people are rejecting you even when they're not, or you'll get them to reject you to confirm that you're rejectable, which is unfortunate. But it's good if you understand the psychology of this a little bit, so you can heal from it. Whenever you have a samskar, it really helps to understand where it came from. Because like why do you believe a certain way? Well, I believe this because when I was 12, this happened, or when I was 18, I was told this, or when I was 21, I saw this. So then you put the dots together. You go, oh, that's why I think this way, because I saw this, and by seeing this, it created a belief, or maybe I saw how my father treated my mother, so that created a belief that, women are like this or men are like this. So then you realize, oh, that's where the belief came from. It's not really my belief. It's not based on reality. It's just that I saw this and then I came up with this idea. So it's good to know. It's a good starting point. Why do I think this way? Sometimes by doing that, you could see, that it actually doesn't make sense that I would think this way. But you might be thinking that way when you're very young, when you don't have the same analytical power that you have now. So now looking back on it, you can think, oh, that didn't make sense. Why should I think like that? The other thing is, it takes some practice of new behaviors, new ways of thinking, new ways of acting to replace it. Because you always get rid of a bad habit by replacing new habit. And samskara is just a habitual way of thinking on the subconscious level. Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's weird. The mind is weird. It's like We don't want to be rejected, but we think we're worthy of being rejected. So in some way we want to be rejected just to confirm that we're rejectable material. It's like real crazy. That's when it gets sick and dangerous. Like when you actually want something bad to happen to confirm the way that you're thinking, which is unhealthy, then you definitely have to do something, because that will just get you into trouble. So I don't know if that's the answer you wanted, but it's something to think about. At university I attended, mixed bathrooms were implemented a few years ago, and they have worked quite well in recent years. It was initiative of the students themselves, but this whole process was framed within a super strong university policy of preventing all kinds of violence. Trainings were carried out through the institution. Of course, it has worked in a university. I don't know how it would be in another type of, yeah, well, if everyone's self-realized, it works fine. If everyone's like Sukadev Goswami, it works fine. And I would speculate, Gaurapriya, that, yeah, it would work for a while, but not permanently. It's not, it's, the Varnashram system is always to keep the sanctity of, the whole Varnashram system is to just subdue sex. So if you start there, that we're trying to transcend sex desire. If you could give it up at 5 years old and give it up the rest of your life, yeah, do it, go for it. That would be fine. That would be the best thing you can do, right? If you can't, get married and control it, and then gradually give it up so that you can transcend material lust and develop your love for Krishna, because until you transcend material lust, you can't. So that's the whole, context of Vedic culture. So in that context, of course, what you're saying, education should be there, but that's brahmachari education. That's what it does. But at the same time, society maintains strictures just to prevent any problems. Monastery on the mountain and the convent on the beach. Just, okay, you guys are good. You girls are good. Let's keep it that way. Let's not take any chances, right? Because you're human. So we'll keep the bathroom separate. In fact, we'll keep the ashram separate. Okay, All right, the brahmacharinis can live in this house. The brahmacharis can live in this house. The rooms next door to one another, probably there won't be any problem, but there definitely won't be any problem if they in separate houses. It's going to be a lot harder. So that's the idea. Now we have a report from Sureshwar in Bangalore. Sureshwar was, so maybe 40 years ago, he was a university student, and it was one class for 4 years, all the same students together, male and female. He said in those 4 years, he never spoke to any of the women in that class. That was a culture, just like, okay, that seems like a weird culture, but nothing bad ever happened, right? Nobody got pregnant that way. So no unmarried girl ever got pregnant by not getting close enough to even to talk to. So, these things were, they can be practiced in a society in which people are raised to respect those values. It doesn't work now because people don't respect those values, but we understand the principle, right? So aversion is also the other side of attraction. So if there's too much aversion, that's not good either. Healthy respect is always the best, without attraction or aversion. That's always the best. Hare Krishna. And even though we know we're not the body, we do have bodies. And they are different, right? And that's why we don't embrace tigers. So that could be another answer. Why do you keep the men and women separate? For the same reason we keep tigers locked up in cages in the zoo. I mean, we should embrace them because we love everyone, right? But we don't, because it's dangerous. Hare Krishna. I mean, in trying to explain these things to modern population, you have to be careful. You don't want to discourage them or say something that sounds like you're too Victorian. But you know what I say? I say, okay, just be celibate for like a few weeks. That'll answer your question. You'll understand the answer. Why do you keep women here, women there? Just be celibate for a few weeks and you'll understand. Why do you guys practice celibacy? Just do it. You'll understand. What about vegetarianism? Just do it. You'll understand. It's amazing. It's amazing. If you get them to do it, and you speak to them a week later, they go, I understand now. Because unless you do it, how are you going to understand it? If you're coming from a culture where you have no understanding. As we say, just practice celibacy for a week, even a day. It'll be the best day of your life. They're not going to understand that unless they do it, right? I didn't come up with that line. That was come up with by another devotee. But for modern people, yeah, it's worth trying. It's a challenge. Hey, let's do a challenge this week. Don't eat any meat. Chant Hare Krishna for 10 minutes a day and be celibate. And just like, you won't die. Don't worry. And let me know how you feel. And if they come back and say, that was the worst week of my life, I was like, okay, whatever. But if they come back and say that was the best week of my life, then it's like, okay, well, let's continue doing it. Hare Krishna. Not everyone is Brahmins, Prabhupada said. You know that joke Prabhupada said to this guy who was trying to intimidate Prabhupada. What if everyone becomes a devotee? You remember that joke? Don't worry, there'll always be fools like you who won't have the brains to understand this philosophy. Prabhupada intimidated him because it was a fight and the man was trying to intimidate and Prabhupada hit him first. That's why Prabhupada said that. Normally he wouldn't say things like that so much, but Prabhupada was informed this man is going to try to intimidate you, and Prabhupada got the first hit. But it's true, not everyone, Prabhupada would always say, not everyone will become devotees because not everybody's that smart, that intelligent. It's just a fact. But those who are will, that's for sure. Okay. So, let's see what else Narada Muni told Pralad Maharaj. What did he say? Yeah. So now he tells his friends, okay, take to Krishna consciousness. You know the word Krishna consciousness is not in the verse. Let's see the verse. Looking for the word Krishna consciousness. Yoga, the process by which one is linked with the Supreme Lord. Yeah. So Prabhupada translates yoga as Krishna consciousness. That's Krishna consciousness. Did you know that? That was Prabhupada's word. He came up with that. He took it from a verse by Rupa Goswami and translated it Krishna consciousness. And so in this verse, it says yoga, which means linking, and Prabhupada translates it as Krishna consciousness. So Pralad's telling his friends, do yoga, KC yoga, join the KC yoga club. Yeah. And he's telling them, this is your duty. Yeah. And then he says, this is so interesting. Then he says, everything you do should develop your love of Krishna, which is straight from Bhagavatam's second canto. There's another verse, Swanustitasya, Dharmasya, Samsiddhi Haritoshanam. Everything you do, evaluated by how it pleases Krishna. So Pralad tells his friends, all you do, it should be yoga. Evaluate your activities on the basis of how it pleases Krishna. Well, we're listening to this and thinking, yeah, we're falling asleep. I heard this 25, 26,421 times on the database. I heard this. But for Pralad's classmates, this is like all revolutionary information. This is not like, they don't read this in the newspaper. This is Hiranyakashipu's school of atheism. This is like contraband information. It's just like the enemy has entered the university of atheism and is giving this propaganda. So the boys have never heard this. It's not like, yeah, my grandmother used to teach me this. No, they're all atheists. They never heard it. And so, Pralad's saying it's kind of revolutionary, don't you think? Just go in and people don't know anything, and you say, okay, you should just do Krishna. You're not the body, therefore, you should surrender to Krishna. 1, 2, 3. That's it. And it's an atheistic school. If you get caught, it's like, what happens? You get your head chopped off. You get elephants. You get snakes. You get tridents. It's like, we're just sitting here, listening to having fun. But Prahlad's like on the edge here, risking everything, right? And the teachers are going to come in, and he's going to have to like, what's going on here? It's quite, you don't get the suspense of it, but there's some suspense here in this scene here. All right. And he tells them, you need a bona fide guru. He's like going down the whole thing, A, B, C, D. Always remember Krishna, never forget him. If you do this, you'll overcome your lust, anger, greed, envy, and jealousy. And you'll develop love for Krishna. Yeah, and you'll be liberated. Go back to Godhead. So, what do the boys have to say about that? Anyway, he's elaborating on these points as I'm going through the verses. He's just like convincing them, with each verse, this is why you should do devotional service. Everything's temporary, etc. Heavenly planets are temporary. Your body's temporary. Your families are temporary. You're going to lose everything anyway. And then he starts talking about karma. You can endeavor for happiness, you'll get distress. Try to avoid, distress will come, happiness will come. You don't even endeavor for it. Karma is working. And like, anyway, you're going to die. So what's like, why make such a big effort? And the happiness you get, it's insignificant. Yeah. Okay. I'm waiting for the boys to respond. The verse. Hold on. Don't go anywhere. So now he's talking about pure devotional service. Everything, any treatise in our philosophy, it always has to, it's like, if you look at it like this, where's it going? Whoops, both hands go together. Okay. Where's it? Is always going, what is the summit? Where is it going? Pure devotional service. So here's a big philosophy. Okay, here's a big philosophy. There's so much information in here. And look at it like a pyramid, and it's going up and up. And where does it end? Pure bhakti. So that's where he ends he's taking this whole conversation too. It's like, okay, it all ends in pure bhakti. That's it. If you understand that, okay, if you understand it's pure devotional service, you can put your Bhagavad Gita on the shelf. You're good to go. Just take out your Bhagavatam and read all about pure bhakti. Okay. Okay, it finishes that chapter. Okay, So now the next chapter is our favorite. Our favorite chapter is the killing of Iraniakashipu. Ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. Okay, I'm going to stop here. See if you have any questions or comments, because it would be nice to start that chapter tomorrow, I think. Start it fresh, because it's so relishable, isn't it? Hare Krishna. Wait a minute. Jai Prabhupada. Yeah, okay. So, okay, well, maybe there's something that can inspire us from Pralad. One of the things we see about Pralad, as we discussed, I think, in the last class, was his fearlessness when he was being killed. He didn't seem to really worry about it. No, not being killed. The attempt on his life was being made. He didn't seem to be so worried about it. And right now, he's preaching theism in the biggest atheistic university that ever existed. And he's like, whatever. And he knows it's dangerous. And he's not compromising also. He's just telling the boys, this is it. It's the fact. You're not the body. You're a servant of Krishna. Body's temporary. These mothers, fathers, families are not yours. He's just giving him the straight philosophy. This is just it. And the boys are thinking, we're like 5. What are you talking about? And Pralad is thinking, no, this is the philosophy of life. You need to hear it right now. So I'm going to give it to you. No compromise. And Srila Prabhupada, he was really antagonistic to compromising. So, he always felt like if you compromise, then you cheat people. You might get more followers, but you're just cheating them because you're not giving them the real medicine that can really cure them. And one devotee was making the point that if you go online now, you'll see that there are many, many gurus who are very popular. And they're more popular than Prabhupada. And he said, maybe the fault is that we are not promoting Prabhupada as well as these other gurus are being promoted. And that could be partially true. But I think it's also true what they're saying is not polarize people. They just, it's kind of like if you feed people chocolate ice cream and pizza, the whole world will come, right? But it's not really healthy. So Prabhupada's feeding them like neem leaves and, chlorella, and things which are healthy. So not everybody's coming for it. And so you can take this in 2 ways. One way is, okay, like Pralad, we should just be very direct and that this is the philosophy, and that's true. But the philosophy doesn't do good to anybody if they don't get it, if it doesn't enter their ear holes and enter their heart. So it's not that you have to compromise to get the philosophy in. You just have to be able to flavor it in a way that you ever see a kid take medicine and they spit it out? So I think sometimes we see devotees preach and people are spitting out the medicine. So it's like, well, it's their problem. I just gave them the medicine. Well, maybe you could flavor it with strawberry sugar syrup. Maybe then they'd take it. Then they wouldn't notice the neem leaves so much. So you haven't compromised philosophy. It's just floating on something that can get down the digestive tract. So, there's a difference between compromising and making the philosophy digestible. And Prabhupada explained that in different places, and it's just common sense, actually. Now, we see that amongst some audiences, being heavy and direct is the best thing. And amongst some audiences, being heavy and direct is the worst thing. So you have to know your audience, and that's a big, sometimes the speaker doesn't know their audience. And so they're not connecting. Even though they're giving knowledge, it's not connecting, so it's not working. You know, it's like when you go to the doctor, they ask you, what are you allergic to? If they give you a medicine you're allergic to, you're going to get sicker. So you have to know, what are these people allergic to? And it's a fact that in some cultures, they're allergic to certain things. And so we want to tell them the truth, but we have to work around it. Like after the gulab jamun is in their mouth and they pass out and then they wake up, then we can tell them. Then they're ready. But sometimes, so that's the expertise of the preacher. The right time, you know, it's like a boxing match. You wear your opponent down, and in the right time, you knock him out. So that's the expertise, not of a preacher in general, that's the expertise of a teacher to be able to communicate, not that you communicate knowledge, but you communicate knowledge that becomes digested. Because if you communicate knowledge and it's not digested, then it doesn't help the person. So it's important. You don't want to water it down so that there's nothing there. But if you don't add some spice, they may never get it down. And so, but you can fail on either side, right? Okay. Hare Krishna. But I like to think of the thing that stands out for me so much with Pralad is he's got so much faith in Krishna, and that's what makes him fearless. You don't notice any fearlessness in him. He's just like whatever he's supposed to do, he just does it. It's like whatever, this is what has to be done, so we do it. And it's like apparently when he was offered prasadam that had poison in it, he knew it. And he thought, well, whatever, we'll offer it to Krishna, it's pure. Now, if you try that, we may not see you in next Wednesday's class. You may go back to Godhead or back to poison loka, whatever. But somehow or other, and this may be something that scientists will discover in the future. I think it's a fascinating subject. Somehow or other, because he had faith that it was prasadam, it didn't kill him, and it had poison in it. Of course, you could say Krishna, neutralized the poison because he was protecting Pralad. That may be, but I think for us to meditate on Pralad and his fearlessness is powerful. It's like, Krishna's my protector. I do my service, whatever. And it's also, Krishna being the protector also means like, well, however he decides to protect me. And sometimes he may decide to protect me in a way that doesn't look like he's protecting me. But to Pralad, it's all protection. It's all the way it's supposed to be. So he has that faith that it's all going to work out fine. So it's like, whatever, this is Krishna's arrangement. So on Sunday, I became aware of something Prabhupada said. I think it's the 12th chapter of the Gita, verse 13. I'm not sure. Prabhupada was talking, it's the verse where Krishna describes the devotees who are dear to him. And one of the verses is describing how a devotee is tolerant. And Prabhupada said something really interesting. Fasten your seatbelts for this. ladies and gentlemen, and we need a drum roll. When something bad happens, Prabhupada said, it's better to suffer than to protest. It's better to suffer than to protest, which is maybe another way we could say it is it's better to tolerate than to protest. Because this is happening for some reason. So if you're protesting, you're not tolerating, you're not accepting, you're creating a greater problem. So it's happening for some reason, karmically or otherwise. So if it's supposed to happen, it's better let it happen than protest it happening. It's kind of interesting. We all know that we or others often protest things, and sometimes the protests last like a lifetime or more. Have you noticed that? It seems like some people are protesting things that happened in their last life. You know, they can't stop protesting. And Prabhupada's saying, you don't want to put your energy into protests. You want to put your energy into devotional service. Okay, if I accept this, then I don't have to put energy into protesting. I'll just suffer it. That ultimately will be less suffering than protesting. Protesting is a tremendous amount of suffering because you can't accept it, isn't it? You live your whole life not accepting something, it's a lot of suffering. Okay, so I accept it. This is how it is. Hare Krishna. Go on with my life, go on with my bhakti. Right? Otherwise, I go on protesting. And I get to take another body so I can protest in another life. Hare Krishna.
Gurudev, please excuse me. The sound is very, very low.
Very, very low. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare. Is it very, very loud now?
Now it's
Now-
great. It's loud.
Very, very, too loud? Yeah. Okay. I was talking
No, it's
very
perfect.
quietly also. Yeah. I was just about to say, it's coming to the season here in America where it's time to protest the mosquitoes. Or it's time to tolerate them. In India, you already are in that season, and you also should be protesting the hot weather or tolerating it. So when this devotee was pointing out what Prabhupada said, I was thinking, yeah, it seems that protesting a problem is often more suffering than tolerating it. It's an interesting thought, isn't it? You know, if you realize how disturbed you can become protesting something as opposed to tolerating it, it just occupies your mind. We have a question from Satyarupa. Is Pralad's taking poison anyway similar to the cowrie boys walking into the mouth of the Aghasura demon? I don't think so. Well, maybe you could say, in a broad sense, yeah. Krishna's here, we don't have to worry. He always takes care of us. Yeah, you could say that, yeah. The idea is if I give my life to Krishna and I'm serving him properly, then why would I worry about anything? I mean, we worry about the conditioned souls. We worry about maintaining our movement and so forth. Those are Krishna's concerns, but our personal concerns, Hare Krishna, he'll take care of us. And it's so funny because if you don't believe it, and I think we were saying last class, if you don't believe it, Krishna reciprocates with, you're not believing, which then confirms that you're not believing in Krishna was true, because Krishna didn't come through, but it was actually your lack of faith that caused Krishna not to come through. So, you have to get your causes and effects clear. Otherwise, you think it's, no, I'm just confirming, Krishna hates me. I have proof. Look at this guy I married, Look at this woman I married. This proves Krishna hates me. Yeah, well, you believe that he hates you, so he fooled you into marrying this girl. So she could hate you and then think, oh, he was sent by Krishna. Yeah. So those things do happen. So you have to be careful, I mean, if you want to blame Krishna, then that's really bad. Really bad to blame Krishna. Well, it's really bad to expect suffering to fall upon you because you think Krishna doesn't like you. Yeah. Krishna had a bad day today, so he decided he's not going to like you today, right? Is that how it works? Like Krishna's like us, he just doesn't like people. Because, Tanya didn't get up till 5, so Krishna doesn't like her today. He's like neglecting her. He's gonna, she's gonna step on a nail today. Yeah, you think he has better things to do than that, don't you? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something amazing when we start our japa class. So amazing, you might go into a state of despair and give up completely. It's going to help you see how far you are from Krishna in chanting. I hope it doesn't cause you to despair. Hope it inspires you. Okay, so we can end class here. Who is